House. Voice of reason here. Wow. Wow. This is very surreal for me. I want, if you guys will allow me, just take a moment. I want to make this very awkward and just look at your faces. Just make it very awkward. I want to look all of you in the eyes. I want to say that because I cannot believe that my life is this cool and that I get to be here, coming all the way from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I get to stand in front of such an amazing group of people, and I get to speak to all of you, and you guys actually care about what I have to say. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank this great group for having me here, for the great ministry, for all the great work that they're doing, and I want to thank each and every single one of you for coming out tonight to see me. And I hope that I get to talk to all of you afterwards. Really quick though, about the Zell thing. You mentioned Zell. So I learned what Zell was just like a week ago, and I have it. I didn't know I had it, but I guess I have it. But from my understanding, that works. That only works like with the person's phone number. So I don't know if I'm gonna give my phone number out to everybody here, but you know what? Who knows? Maybe I will. I'm a little crazy. Maybe I'll just give my phone number out to everybody. Let me tell you guys something though, actually, because it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, and then I want to thank you guys so much for passing the what do you guys call it? The box of love, the love basket. I was close enough. The love basket. I wasn't going to say this publicly. I didn't want to say this publicly, but for some reason, you guys prayed for me. So whatever I say, it's your fault because you guys prayed for me. I wasn't going to say this publicly. I was never going to, and I'm never going to mention it like in a video or anything. But the only reason I know what Zell is because a week ago, somebody reached out to me on Instagram. One of my followers, who's been following me like pretty much since the very beginning, and I hadn't heard from this person in a few months. And she reached out to me and she said, "Hey, I know it's been a while. This is really awkward for me. This is really weird, but I'm gonna swallow my pride and I'm just gonna go for it. I need to tell you that me and my family are about to lose our home. We're about to lose our home and we don't know what to do. And we really, really need help. So I'm just reaching out to you to see if by any chance, if it was possible, if you can maybe make a donation to my family, because on Friday, if we can't pay the money that we owe, we're gonna be out on the street." And the only reason I know what Zell is because I was able to respond to her and say, "How much do you need?" She told me how much she needed. And because of all of you, because of your support, because of the views, because of the YouTube views and the TikTok views and everything, YouTube and TikTok and all of the platforms of the devil, they pay the voice of reason. They pay the voice of reason because you guys watch my stuff, right? And I was actually able to, on Thanksgiving, it was on Thanksgiving when she reached out to me, and I was able to help her out so that she and her family could stay in their home. God gave me the honor of being able to help somebody on Thanksgiving of all days to stay in their home. And I would not have been able to do that without you guys, without your support. And as the basket is going around, and he mentioned Zelle, and I had heard of it from her. I was like, "How do I give you the money?" She's like, "Do you have Zelle?" I was like, "What the heck is that?" And it turns out I had it, so I was able to do it. But I want you guys to know that all of the support that you give me, is this mic, is it okay? Okay. You're gonna change the mic? Okay. Maybe the regular one? Should I take this one off? Oh, leave it on? Okay. All right. How's this? How's this? Is this better? I think this is better. I think it's better. Very good. So, I want you guys to know that all of the help that you guys give me, all of the support, even just watching my videos, that allows me to do what the Lord calls all of us to do, and that is to help others when they really, really need help. And I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be able to do that. Now, this is very surreal for me to be here in front of all of you right now. It's very surreal for multiple reasons, which I'm going to get into. But it's funny because usually when I get invited to places, I get invited not to hang out or anything. Like, they want me to work. They want me to, they invite me to like do debates. They have to debate some crazy Protestant or some, non-Catholic that wants to fight me, which I'm always happy to do. Or sometimes I get invited to go to like movie premieres and go to like talk to all of the celebrities and interview them and talk, promote the movie. Or I get invited to, men's conferences where same thing. I got to interview all of the people, all of the main speakers, because I'm always like the least famous person wherever I go. Like everyone is known more than me. And for the first time ever, I have been invited here by this great ministry to just talk to you guys about me and tell you guys about my story, my testimony. And that's what I'm gonna do. I've actually never done that before, like publicly. I think only like one, yeah. I'm excited. I'm very excited. I think there's only like one guy here that knows my story, and it's this guy right here, because my man Josue is one of my patrons. This dude right here, this kid. Stand up really quick. Stand up really quick. Because I was so happy to. So this kid right here, let me tell you something. This kid right here. This kid is one of my patrons. I'm also on Patreon. That's the platform where you could like be like a subscriber to me, and you could be like a monthly subscriber, and you get all of the content that's too hot for like TikTok and stuff. You get like spicy voice of reason, and one of the perks that you get is you get to like have a Zoom call with me like every month. I've been seeing this kid on Zoom every single month for how long? How long have you been a patron? For
almost a year.
For like a year. Like a year already, oh my gosh, a whole year. And I see this kid on Zoom every single month, and then he walks in here today, and I can't believe he's real, but look at him, he's real. So, and I think he might be the only one that knows like my whole story, because the patrons, they get spicy voice of reason, so they see everything. But anyway, so if you guys want to see spicy voice of reason, Patreon.
It's worth it.
Thank you, I appreciate it, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. So, let me introduce myself. My name is Alex. Oh, another thing too, I've never said my last name before in public. And you guys all know my last name, so you guys got my last name. I'll give you guys my phone number for the Zelle. And if you want my social, just text me and I'll send it out to everybody. So yeah, so you guys know me really well now. But my name is Alex. I'm known online as Voice of Reason. Voice of Reason. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I've been Voice of Reason since March of last year. It was in March of 2023 when I started Voice of Reason. And by the way, I didn't start Voice of Reason, I was forced into it. I was coerced into starting Voice of Reason. I was forced, I had no say in the matter. My best friend since kindergarten, who was supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it. He's gonna come up and meet me here on Sunday. I'm gonna be here in LA for like 11 days, just so you guys know too. So I'm gonna be hanging out. If you guys wanna hang out, like I don't really got much to do. But so my best friend from kindergarten, his name is Jonathan. He happens to be my producer. He is the producer for Voice of Reason. And he, for a couple of years, was trying to get me to sit down on my couch, and he was gonna film me talking about the stuff that I know about, right? And he was trying to get me to do this for a really long time, and I said, I'm fine, I'm good, that's kind of weird, I'm okay, thank you. And I would kind of just, say no every single time that he would tell me, that he wanted to do it. And I was like, no, I'm good. And then one day, he just came over, he forced himself into my house, I don't even know how he got in, and he, made me sit down, and he set up all of his equipment and everything, and he said, shut up, sit down, shut up, and listen to me, and we're gonna do this, and and he forced me into doing it. So I was sitting there, he was setting everything up, and then he just, everything is set up, and we're ready to go, and he's like, talk about this. And he was just like throwing topics. And that first session that we had was like an hour long. We did like, 8 short videos. And he edited them, and he sent it to me, and he goes, look how good I make you look. He was like, you can't look this good without me. Like, look how good I make you look. And I was like, you make me look pretty good, man. And he was like, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna do you a favor, and we're gonna
create a TikTok for you, and we're gonna put these out on TikTok and just watch what happens. I know what I'm talking about. Just watch what happens." And I was like, "Okay." And I was the one that came up with Voice of Reason with the name. That was literally the only thing I contributed to this whole thing, like just the name. And I would sit there, and he would tell me what to talk about, and then I'd talk about it, and then I'd be like, "Can I, go do something else now, please?" This was not my idea. Not my idea. It was his idea. And that was in March of 2023. March 13th, 2023 was a Monday, I believe, and that was when our first TikTok videos went live, or whatever you call it. And then that was in March, and then like in July and August, we got Instagram and YouTube. And now, in December of 2024, I'm right here in front of all of you. So I think we're doing pretty good. I think we're doing pretty good. But in order for you guys to understand my story, understand the testimony, I have to go back way before March of 2023. I have to go back. So I was 27 when I started Voice of Reason. I just turned 29. We got to go all the way back to 15 years ago, if my math is correct, when I was 14 years old. 14 years old. You guys want to know what happened to me when I was 14 years old? When I was 14 years old, this has to do with a girl. It always has to do with a girl. I was 14 years old, and there was this girl that I knew that I really wanted to know. I like this girl. I really like this girl, right? And this girl went to my church. I've always been Catholic. My whole life I've been Catholic, right? And this girl went to my church. And I was talking to this girl one day, and I'm thinking that I'm, pretty smooth or whatever. I'm only like 14. And she tells me, she says, "Hey." And she looked at me with those eyes. And I was like, "Hey." And she was like, "You should come with me to Life Teen." And I said, "I'll go with you anywhere, but what's Life Teen?" And she's like, "It's like the church group, the youth group. I think you like it, you should come." And I was like, "Whatever, yeah." And so I went with this girl, right? She invited me to the church group. And something really funny happened at this church group, at Life Teen. And by the way, we have some people from Life Teen here, right? I met some people earlier from Life Teen. If you guys, there's someone here, a Life Teen coordinator. I'm a product of Life Teen. Here's what happened when I went to Life Teen. I thought that I was just going, because I was just following this girl that I liked, this attractive girl, right? She was like 3 years older than me too. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. But I go to Life Teen, and I heard something really interesting. See, I'm been Catholic my entire life. Just like how most of us have done it, baptized as a baby, made my first Holy Communion. I even served the altar, just like how most of us, but I didn't really get it up here. I didn't really understand it. And when I went to Life Teen, something really interesting happened. I heard something that I know I'd heard it before. I went to catechism. I didn't understand any of it, but I heard something that for the first time in my 14 years of life, that clicked with me. This is what I heard. I heard that 2,000 years ago, there was this guy, 2,000 years ago, he was a walking, talking, living, breathing person, like all of us, 2,000 years ago, in the Middle East. And this guy, this man, claimed to be God. He claimed that he was God in the flesh. That's what he was telling everybody. And then he proved it by performing miracles, publicly performing miracles in front of thousands. Over and over and over and over again, miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. And of course, this man got so famous because he was performing all of these miracles 2,000 years ago that he got the attention of everybody. And because he was claiming to be God in a time where in the Roman Empire, the Roman emperor was called God. They thought that the Roman emperor was divine, that he was God. There was this poor Jewish man who was showing the whole world, saying, "No, I'm God." and I can prove it to you. And he did. He said, that Roman Emperor, that Caesar guy, he's not God. I'm God. And he proved it. And he proved it so much that the Roman Emperor caught wind of it and he killed him. He killed him. He killed this man who was claiming to be God. And then 3 days later, this man rose from the dead. And this is a historical event. This is a historical reality. This man claimed to be God, said he was God, proved he was God. They killed him for it. They executed him publicly. Thousands of people watched him die. And all of those same people that watched this man die 2,000 years ago in the Middle East, a few days later, and for the next 40 days afterwards, that same man that they watched be put to death, executed on a pagan torture device, he was walking, talking, living, breathing, eating, and he showed himself to thousands. This happened 2,000 years ago. This man is named Jesus of Nazareth. I had never heard it explained to me in that way. All that, catechesis, I wasn't paying attention. I was probably staring at that girl or whatever that I liked, whatever, that I wasn't paying attention. All that catechesis, all that going to mass, all of that, and it never clicked for me until I went to Life Teen, and I heard it presented to me like that for the very first time. So then, what happened to me? I forgot all about that girl. Forgot all about that girl. And I think that girl might have liked me too, because she was, she was kind of like flirting back, and I'd be like, hey, get away from me. Like, I'm like, listen to this. Like, this is important. And I listened to that. At 14 years old, I was asking myself, is this true? I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm really going to get to the bottom of this. And that's what I did. And I researched, and I did my homework, and I did my due diligence, and I read thousands of books. And when I say thousands, I mean thousands of books. I read so much. I worked so hard at this and trying to figure this out, to figure out if this was true, that I almost didn't graduate high school. I think they passed me just because they felt sorry for me, because I guess I was a nice kid. But I didn't do any schoolwork. I didn't care, and I don't recommend this, by the way. I didn't do any schoolwork. I didn't care about school. I didn't care about none of that. I was trying to get to the bottom of this. Is this true? Did this really happen? So I spent my formative years, 14, 15, 16, all my high school years, not doing homework, not doing my assignments. I was trying to figure out if this was true. I was obsessed. And when I say obsessed, I mean like really, really, really obsessed. And guess what I found out? I found out that what they told me at Life Teen is true. Amen. 2,000 years ago, a man named Jesus of Nazareth claimed to be God, proved that he was God. He died, and then he rose from the dead. And then he ascended into heaven, and all the thousands of followers that watched him for the 3-year period that he was performing all these miracles and teaching, they watched him go to heaven. So what next? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? So, of course, you have to read about this Jesus of Nazareth and learn about what it is that he taught, everything that he did. And Life Teen gave me a Bible, the Life Teen Bible. I still have it. And that was the first time that I ever opened a Bible and read it, was that Life Teen Bible. And I opened it, and I read it, and I just kept reading, 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 because I wanted to figure out if this was true. Because let me tell you guys something. There's only one reason to be Catholic. Only one reason. That's it. There's only one reason to be Catholic. I don't care if I'm Catholic because my whole family is Catholic, or I'm Catholic because I like the church architecture, or I'm Catholic because I really like the liturgy, or I'm Catholic because I married into, Catholicism because my wife or my husband was Catholic, and if I wanted to marry this person, I had to be Catholic. I don't care if you made your confirmation just so that you could baptize your nephew or whatever it is. None of that, no. There's only one reason to be Catholic, because it's true. If Catholicism is true, everyone in the world needs to be Catholic. If this man, Jesus of Nazareth, really is who he claimed that he was, then everyone in the world needs to follow him. Everyone in the world needs to be Christian. So I came to the conclusion that God exists, that Jesus Christ is God, and then the next question was, where do we go from here? What next? How do I follow Jesus Christ? And you want to know something, and you guys might gasp when you hear this, but when I was like 15 years old, I was this close to becoming Protestant. This close to becoming Protestant. This close. Here's what happened though. I had my Bible, and I had a lot of Protestant friends around me, a lot of Protestant influence, and that's why I was kind of leaning towards the Protestant route, because I didn't really know any Catholics that would have these conversations with me. All of the people like in my school that wanted to talk to me about these things, they were all Protestants. So I would talk to them, and they would share their insights, and I would go to their churches, and I would talk with their pastors, and I would ask them these questions. And here's something that I noticed. I would go to different pastors, in my hometown, and I would talk to them, and I would ask them a set of questions. And I went to multiple pastors, and I asked all of them a set of questions. And here's something that really worried me. They all had different responses to all of my questions. They all gave me different answers to all of my questions. Not a single one of them was able to give me the same set of answers for all of the questions that I had. And that really bothered me, because we're all reading from the same Bible, we're all using the same Bible, we're all reading it in the same language, and why is it that all of these pastors were coming to wildly different conclusions about the same thing that all of us were reading? That really upset me. That really, really, really bugged me. It got me mad. I was really mad that I couldn't get a straight answer. So then I was already obsessed. Oh, now I got even more obsessed because I had hit like a wall. And then I wanted to figure out, what is the Bible even like? We have the Bible, but who cares if we can't even come to the correct understanding of it, of what it means? And I would ask, did God really leave us just this book so that we could all try and argue with each other about what the book means? Was that really what God did? Is that really what God did? Well, then I started noticing other things in the Bible, in the Bible, that he didn't actually even leave us, Jesus, this Jesus of Nazareth, person who was God in the flesh, the Son of God, he didn't leave us a book, actually. He didn't leave us the Bible. He left us a church. And then it was that church that he founded, that he established, that was the church that would give us the Bible. He left us a church. He left his apostles in charge. And I noticed something else in the Bible. I said, you know what? I noticed that in the Bible you read that these apostles, that they would leave other men in charge by laying their hands on them and ordaining them to ministry, and they would leave them in charge. And then those guys, they would go and they would lay their hands on other men, and they would leave them in charge by ordaining them to ministry, and so on and so forth. And I realized, I said, whatever the true church is, has to go back to the apostles. So I started doing my research. I started looking up all of these churches that I was going to, all of these pastors that I was talking to, all of these, even like pastors from like other parts of the country that, corresponding with, and I would look up all of their churches, and I would, just try and figure out when were they founded. And almost every single one of them were founded over the last 100 years. 100 years. So then, I was Googling stuff, right? That's how we do research. And I just typed in, what church has existed for 2,000 years? And guess what popped up? There was a really, really easy way where I could have condensed all of my research into really quick. There's all I had to do. Hey Siri, who founded the Catholic Church? She's supposed to speak, isn't she? Let me try this again. I'm an old man. I'm not really good with this stuff. I just found out what Zell is, okay? Hey, Siri. Who founded the Catholic Church, Siri? Hey Siri, who founded the Catholic Church? It's a picture of Jesus, guys. It's a picture of Jesus. Siri has failed me. Oh, look, there's a lot of pictures of Jesus. It turns out that Jesus founded the Catholic Church, and even Siri knew that. And I had to like waste all of like my high school and then not do my homework and stuff while Siri knew. But I got to that answer eventually. And I learned that, and then when I learned that is when I started going back to all of those pastors that I had been, talking with and asking questions to, and I was so mad. And I said, "Hey," I would go to all of them, and I was like, "Did you know what I just discovered recently?" After a couple of years, I was like 16 by the time I came to this realization, and I let him have it, and I let him have it, and that was when I realized God exists, and Jesus is God, and Jesus left us a church. And if Jesus tells us in Luke 10:16, talking to his apostles, he says, "Whoever follows you follows me, and whoever rejects you rejects me." So if we want to follow Jesus, we have to follow the apostles. We have no choice. If we want to follow God, we have to follow his apostles. Well, the apostles said, if you want to follow us, you have to follow these guys that we ordained in ministry, these leaders. You have to follow them. And then those guys, they ordained other guys to ministry, and they said, you got to follow them. And that chain continues all the way from Jesus and the apostles, all the way down to the present day. We have Deacon here. Is Deacon back in the building? Deacon? Is Deacon here? Is he okay? You guys can see him? Deacon is an ordained minister. You guys know what that means? Deacon is a successor of the apostles. What that means is that if you go to his line of ordination, because there was a bishop that ordained him deacon, and there was a bishop that ordained that bishop to the priesthood, and there was a bishop that ordained that bishop to the priesthood, and there was another bishop that ordained that guy to the priesthood, and that chain goes all the way back up to deacon's line of ordination will go back to one of the 12 apostles. And actually the Pope, the Bishop of Rome, you can trace his entire ordination. There have been 266 popes, with St. Peter the Apostle being the first one, and now Pope Francis is 266. And we have the whole unbroken chain. And we have that not just for the Bishop of Rome, but for all bishops and all ordained ministers in the entire world in the Catholic Church. Every single last one of them can trace their succession to the apostles. And it was to that church that Jesus Christ said that he was going to lead his church into all truth in John 14 and John 16. And it's of that church that St. Paul the Apostle says that church is going to be the pillar and foundation of truth in 1 Timothy 3:15. And in Hebrews 13:17, it says that we need to obey our leaders, and that if we don't obey our leaders, basically what it says is that we get cast into hell if we don't obey our leaders. So we have to obey these men, these ministers of Jesus Christ. And I spent many, many, many more years sharing this with people, talking to people about it, long before I was ever Voice of Reason. At the parochial level, I was teaching at different churches, right? When I was 16 years old, at my local church, they let me like run the whole show, like teach I was 16 years old teaching the adults. I was 16 years old teaching guys in their 40s and 50s and even in their 60s, and I was teaching them about all of the research that I had done over the past few years, and I was teaching them the faith. I was teaching the teenagers, I was teaching them, I was having conversations with, what I'm doing now is Voice of Reason, I was doing it at the local level, just in person with people that I would talk to, engage them in these conversations. And that's what I did for years. And then I was always doing that, and some people might know. I think I've mentioned it in videos before, but it's appropriate because I'm in LA. So before I was Voice of Reason, what I did for work, I was actually a professional actor. I was a professional actor because where I'm from, in New Mexico, Hollywood, I bring it up because we're kind of here in the shadow of Hollywood. They went out to New Mexico and they started making movies out there. Netflix has their studio over there. And I was working as a professional actor. I started in 2018 and everything was going good. And then something happened. I was a working actor. I was working, like going to auditions, getting roles, all that, it was great. And me personally, I always loved like the arts. That was one of the things that if I wasn't studying the faith, I really enjoyed the arts. So acting, it's an art form, right? So I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. So I was a working actor. I became a working actor, and actually before I get, because this is my testimony, right? And they said I have like an hour, so I'm going to tell this story right. So in 2018, another thing about me is that I was in the seminary to become a priest. I was going to become a priest. I was in the seminary for a little bit. I thought I was going to become a Catholic priest. So my testimony, this is what my testimony is about, guys. My testimony is about God taking everything away from me. That's really what my testimony is about. My testimony is about me falling in love and God taking it away from me every single time. Every single time. I remember when I was a young kid, a neighbor, we had a next door neighbor. He came over, I remember it was Easter, and he came over to the house and we were celebrating Easter together. And I remember he told my dad, he looked at me and he said, you know what? He told my dad, he said, I think you have a priest on your hands. And that was the first time that thought ever entered my mind. And I was young. I must have been like 9 or 10, long before I was 9 or 10. But that thought always entered my mind. And then when I came to the realization, hey, the Catholic Church is the true Church of Jesus Christ, that always stuck with me. And I said, maybe I'm supposed to be a priest. So then I kind of like put it off for a long time because I was like, kind of scared. So I barely graduated high school, went to college for like a year or two, and then I decided that I was going to give it a shot. So I went to Mexico City. That's where they sent me. I went to Mexico City, and I got to check out the seminary and stay at the seminary, and I loved it. I fell in love. I loved it. But they told me that I couldn't stay there. They were going to send me in New Mexico. They were going to send me, up north about an hour and a half from where I live. They were going to send me with the priests that were there in New Mexico, and that I was going to live the life of a priest with them. And then after that, then they would send me either back to Mexico City, or I would get sent to Colombia, or I would get sent to Rome. One of those three places is where we'll send you for your studies for seminary. So went to Mexico City, loved it, came home in 2017, and I had a year to get everything in order because 2018 was when I was supposed to go back to seminary. So 2018 comes, I go to the seminary, and I loved it. I lived with this beautiful religious order, this order of priests, and I lived the life. I was shadowing the priests, and I was living the life that they lived, and I loved it. Never been happier in my life, ever. To this day, I have never felt a joy or a peace or anything like what I felt when I was living with those priests in Española, New Mexico, and I was living that life with them. I fell in love. And then they kicked me out. For good reason, they kicked me out. But, the priest, my spiritual father said, he told me, he looked at me and he said, I don't think you're supposed to be here. And I said, I love it here, Father. What are you talking about? And he goes, yeah, I know, but I think there's something else you got to do. I think there's something else. I think that he said, I think you need to be somewhere else doing something else. He's like, I think you need to go figure out what that is, because I would hate to like string you along and you go through this whole, and by the way, seminary is like 7, 8, 9 years, by the way, so you guys know it's like a lot of school. I would hate for you to go through this 8-year process, and then you get ordained, and then you get an assignment, and you're working as a priest, and then you like realize that there was something else that you needed to be doing, and you should at least try it. So he's like, go try it, go figure it out, because I don't think you're supposed to be here. And this priest, like, he knew everything about me because he was my spiritual director, and he knew everything about my formation. He was in charge of my formation, so he had to know everything. He knew all my dirty secrets. He knew everything. He knew everything, and he knew that I had a passion and love for the arts, because me and this priest, we would bond at the seminary. We would bond over movies. We would watch like classic films, and we'd analyze it, and we'd break it down. He also had a love for the arts, and he told me, he said, hey, maybe go try that acting thing. Because right before I went to seminary in 2018, I just by happenstance, I met this lady in my hometown through my dad, and she her name's Karen. I called her my theater mom, and she saw me, and she came up to me. She'd never seen me before, and she comes up to me and she goes, "Hey, have you ever considered acting?" And in my mind, I was like, "Yeah, I kind of, yeah." But I was like, "Who wants to know?" And she was like, "Well, I'm actually a playwright," and she gave me like her card and her credentials, and she's like a really famous like playwright, and she was like, "I actually just wrote something, and I think you'd be perfect for it. You should like come and read for it, and maybe you'll get the part." And I said, "Oh, I appreciate that, but I'm actually literally like, next week I'm moving, I'm leaving, I'm going to seminary." And she goes, "Oh," and she told me, she goes, "That voice of yours, that voice." She's like, "That voice, you need to put it to good use." And she's like, "If anything changes, call me." I went to seminary, got kicked out, came back home, and I called her. And I called her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so happy you're back." I went, and then it was around this time, it was in November of 2018, all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, she pulled strings, and I became a working actor. And I loved it. Not as much as I loved the seminary, but I was working, like I worked with like Angelina Jolie, I worked with a bunch of like really high profile people that I was working with. It was amazing. And then what happened in 2020? The pandemic happened in 2020, and everything shut down, and everyone lost work, right? So I'm not working anymore because everything shut down. And I remember the last thing that I was on before the pandemic happened. So they lied to me, and they said that they were going to be doing this kids movie. It was like a kids movie about something like their parents get abducted by aliens, and the kids have to go and like save their parents or something like that. And it was like a kids movie, and I'm still like, I'm like, well, I got to take whatever I can get. I'm like, sure, whatever, I'll do it. And we're filming it, and it actually turns out that this movie wasn't about that. It was a movie about a girl who was going to get an abortion. It's a movie that came out a few years ago. I forget what it was called, but it was of a girl that goes, she gets pregnant, and she goes and she gets an abortion. And it's celebrating abortion. And I didn't know that that's what this movie was about. They didn't tell me because I wasn't important enough for them to tell me what it was really about. It was like a small role. And I remember I was on set one day, and there was she was an extra. And somehow she found out what this movie actually was, what this movie was about, and she flipped out, and she made a scene, and it was not good. And so I went to the production assistants, and I was like, "Hey, like, is this true? Are you guys really making a movie about abortion?" And they were like, "Yeah, like, but we just can't get it out because controversial. So let's just get back to work and." And so right there, I had a dilemma, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do, but literally, like right after that happened is when the pandemic happened, and everything shut down. And then when they started making movies again, and I was trying to go back, they said, "No, we can't take you," because they remembered that I was making a fuss over that, the movie, and also because I didn't get the vaccine, and they were like, "You have to have the vaccine if you're going to work here, and if you don't have it, we can't take you. We can't even insure you." So I loved that. I loved the seminary, and God took it away. I loved acting, and I was doing really well. I was thinking to myself, this must be what Father Julio was telling me about, that I needed to try this. Like, I love this. And then that got taken away, and I didn't know what to do. But during this whole time, I'm teaching as a catechist. And I'm teaching the adults, and I'm teaching, the teenagers. And then one day at my parish, they said, "Hey, we don't need you anymore." I had been there forever, and they were like, "You know what? Like, it's okay. We don't need you anymore." And then so I went to another parish and tried to see if they'd let me teach there, and they're like, "Yeah, sure." And I taught one class, and then the pastor, he like calls me over the phone, and he's like, "I think I'm gonna take over. I don't need you." And teaching was always my favorite thing to do. More than acting, more than anything, was teaching. I love teaching. So everything that God had given me in my life that I ever fell in love with, He took away. Took away. Everything that He's ever given me, He's taken away. And this is why it's so surreal for me to be here in front of you guys right now. because something happened to me just a couple of weeks ago. Me being here tonight has been in the works for a couple of months, right? I've known for a couple of months that I was going to be here. Just 2 weeks ago, something happened to me. I thought that God was going to take away voice of reason. Literally 2 weeks ago, I was going through a crisis. I thought that I was going to have to stop voice of reason, that I was going to have to shut it down. And I thought, I literally got to the point where I'm thinking like, okay, what are my obligations? What do I still need to do? And I was thinking to myself, well, when I go to LA and I'm talking to the sea of people, I'm going to have to announce to them that voice of reason is done. And there was a point where I was thinking like, yeah, that's what I'm going to have to do. And then right at the last minute, the situation changed, and voice of reason isn't going anywhere. But the reason that I bring it up is because of this. God, like I walked in here and there was some people here that were like, they saw me and they like freaked out, and people coming up to hug me and everything, and you know, I'm taking all these pictures, and I love that. I love talking, and I want to talk to every single one of you. And by the way, before I forget, if you follow me on Instagram, send me a message on Instagram and I'll follow you back. Every single one of you, I'll follow every single one of you back. Let me know that you were here, and I'm going to follow all of you back, every single last one of you. I'm going to follow you all back. Because voice of reason isn't going anywhere. But the reason I bring this up is because of this. God doesn't need me. God doesn't need me. He really doesn't need me. God can have anybody do what I'm doing. He doesn't need me. He's letting me. He's letting me do this because he has pity on me. He's letting me do this. He can take it away at any moment. At any moment. I know that you guys were all excited to come and see me. Because, oh, voice of reason, he's so cool. God can take it away at any moment. At any moment. He can take it all away. Because it's happened to me quite a bit. He doesn't need me. He doesn't need me. I get to do this. It's an honor. It's a privilege. And here's the thing. Voice of reason wasn't about me. Voice of reason was about my producer, Jonathan. Because my producer, Jonathan, he and I have been best friends since 6 years old. Since 6 years old. And it wasn't until a few years ago, like around 2020, when I started having these conversations with him about the faith, because he was Catholic too, but he never took it seriously, never went to Mass, nothing. And I would talk to him, and he and I were talking for a long extended time where we're having conversations, and I'm just kind of working on him, and I'm working on it, and I'm working on it, and then finally it clicked. It clicked. It was like a switch. It clicked, and now he's like more Catholic than me, and he was the one that when he clicked for him, that was when he turned to me and he said, "You need to do this online. We need to put you online. We need to put you on TikTok and Instagram. And we're doing this." And he was like on fire. I didn't want to do it I've never had a personal social media account in my life. Isn't that crazy? I'm like the only guy that I've known like in my life that never had any Facebook or Instagram or anything personally ever. I'm like a weirdo. And I got on social media for the very first time in my life as Voice of Reason because Jonathan forced me to do it. And Voice of Reason is really his project. He was the one that he discovered what I discovered so many years ago. And because it was so long ago that I had discovered it, it kind of like wears off, like that fire kind of wears off. But then when he got it, he got that fire and he reminded me of that fire. And ever since we started, I've literally seen that fire in thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I cannot tell you how many people have reached out to me saying, because of you, Voice of Reason, because of your ministry, because of the videos that you make, I was an atheist and now I'm Catholic because of you, Voice of Reason, because of your ministry, because of the videos you make. I was Muslim, now I'm Catholic because of you, Voice of Reason, because of your ministry, because of the videos that you make. I was a Protestant and now I'm Catholic because of you, Voice of Reason, because of your ministry, because of the videos that you make. I was an Eastern Orthodox, now I'm Catholic. I came back into communion with Rome because of you, Voice of Reason. Because of you, Voice of Reason. Because of you, voice of reason, my family was about to get kicked out of our home. And because of you, because of all of you, God let me stop that from happening because of all of you. So God has taken away everything that I've ever loved. He's taken it away for whatever reason. But look what he's given me now. Look what he's given me now. So my testimony, my message to all of you is that Jesus Christ is God. The Catholic Church is the church that he founded. And that God doesn't need any of us. But he gives us life, and he gives us the blessings that he gives us purely out of love. Purely out of love. And when you hear all the noise going on outside, when you hear all the craziness in the world, all of the dangers, all of the violence, all of the confusion, all of the despair, I can't tell you guys how many people have reached out to me and said, Voice of Reason, I was this close to taking my own life. And just because I saw one of your videos, you changed my life. I can't do that by myself. Can't do it. That's God. But everything that God is doing through me, he can do through each and every single one of you. If you let him. Because long before I was Voice of Reason, I was just Alex in Albuquerque, New Mexico, talking to the people that were around me, talking to my community, talking to people that I loved. And if every single one of us did that, if every single one of us, just here in LA, all Catholics in LA, I was talking about it with some great people just now, about changing the culture. Changing the culture. If every single one of us did that and told everyone that we come across, and every person that crosses our path, if we just told them, 2,000 years ago, there was this guy back in the day in the Middle East who claimed to be God, and it turns out he was right. So what are you going to do about it? Because God revealed himself, and he showed us exactly what it is that we need to do to be united with him. What are you going to do about it? Because here he said it. Because we have proof. So what are we going to do about it? If every single one of us just reminded everybody of that fact, think about how drastically different the world can be. All of my closest friends were even anti-Catholic. And now they're all married with kids, devoutly Catholic, and they're raising beautiful Catholic families. Every single one of you can have a beautiful Catholic family. Every single one of you can have a beautiful Catholic community. Every single one of you can win the world over for Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ is Lord. Jesus Christ is King of Kings. And if you make Jesus Christ your King, if you make Jesus Christ your King, if you make Jesus Christ your Lord, and you let the rest of the world know that Jesus Christ is their King and their Lord, babies will sing like that all the time. So, I don't know how to wrap this up. I'm kind of just, I don't know. Is there any questions, concerns, comments, threats, anything like that? Mama has a question. I got to let him ask a question because when he saw me, he was like so overjoyed. What's up, man? Can I see what? What? Oh, the line? Remember, friends. I was actually supposed to start with that and I forgot. Thank you for... Glory to Jesus Christ. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. Thank you.
Let's give our Lord and Savior a round of applause for our brother. It feels good to be a Catholic tonight. It feels good to be a son of God and to just learn. I don't know how many of you guys learned
Thank you,
something
brother.
today.
Thank you so much. God bless you.